Nothing is the absence of something. The absence of something. It's impossible for something to come from nothing. It is impossible for something to come from nothing. That's impossible. Because from nothing, nothing comes. So that's impossible. Did the universe create itself? No, it's impossible for the universe to have created itself or to have caused itself, because that means that the universe would have to be and not be at the same time. As Hamza Zortsis says, famously, he says, it's like a mother giving birth to herself. It's impossible for a mother to give birth. Imagine your mum giving birth to herself. What does that mean? How can that happen? How can it happen? It can't happen. So the universe can't cause itself. And the universe can't come from nothing. Now the question is, what's the third option? That there was something that caused the universe. There was something that caused the universe. Now, is this something that caused the universe? Is it something which depends on something else? Or is it something which doesn't depend on something else? There's two options here. If they say there is something which depends on something else, then you've got to keep going back and say, well, that depends upon something, and that depends upon something, and you'll never meet a resolution. So what is something which all things depend upon, and it depends upon nothing? And this is what the Qur'an calls a samad. This is what a samad means. It means that everything depends upon God, and God depends upon nothing. And in fact, logically, this is what you require. You require something that all things depend upon, and that thing depends upon nothing. This is the requirement. Now, if they say, well, I don't believe in that, I don't accept that, whatever, doesn't matter. You've done what you had to do. You've put the message across. So you're not trying to convert or force anybody, but this is the kind of reasoning and the kind of argumentation that we need. So now, I want two volunteers. One of them is going to pretend to be the atheist, and one of them is going to pretend to be the Muslim, and we're going to do one role play. I know there's some sisters, maybe you can do this when you go home or something, I'm sorry to say, there's no facilitation, but let's just have, well, obviously most of you guys are not going to be able to do this anyway as well. You can be the volunteer. By the looks of your face, I have to make you the atheist. I want to kid. What's your name, brother? Oman. Okay, not Jordan, not Egypt, but Oman. Okay, mashallah, we have Oman here. It's going to be called Barry, and this young man here. Come. Oh, this is very young guy. MashaAllah. Let him be the Muslim today. Okay, so what I want you guys to do, yeah? What's your name, my friend? Yusha, how old are you? Oh, MashaAllah, very small. Okay, look. What you're going to do, okay, what we're going to have here, is you're going to ask him. You're going to ask him, where did the universe come from? Yeah? And you're going to see what he says. If he says it came from nothing, you're going to push him. You're going to say, how could it come from nothing? Yeah? And then if he says it created itself, say, how can it create itself? Yeah? And then you're going to show him that the universe, where we live, the universe, it had to have something which is not created. Yeah? Which everything depends upon it, and it depends upon nothing. Okay? Try your best. Please go. Should we give him the, where's the microphone? Where's the Luton microphone? Huh? Where did he get? What pound shop did he get it from? Every shop here is a pound shop, actually, isn't it? Cheap place. Okay. Start us up. Someone who wants to start? You want to start, yeah? Ask him what do you want to ask him.
Where did the universe come from?
Go ahead, answer.
It came from nothing.
How did it come from nothing?
It came from itself.
How could the earth create itself?
It's science.
How did science know this?
Because a professor said it came from nothing.
But they're stupid.
Why is it stupid?
Some scientists are lab rats.
But they're quite clever though. Surely they're right. How can they be wrong? A lot of people agree on it.
How would they know if they were the first people to stand on earth? How did they know how it was created?
I like this boy. What's your name again? Yusha, mashallah. This guy is humiliating you, brother. Okay. Keep it as that. Mashallah. Well done. Well done. Takbir. Take a seat, mashallah. Thank you. See, I like the fact that you graded your language for his age. Well, actually, maybe you're trying your best. I don't know. Okay, so this is the first thing. So once we've established that the universe can't come from nothing, it can't create itself. The second thing we do. Oh yeah. Okay. Luton technology. The second thing we do, right, is now we have to establish that God is one. So the G stands for what? God. Yeah? The O stands for oneness. Oneness. Yeah? Because if there's someone who believes more than one God, this is confusing and this is problematic. And they can't believe in this and they can't be Muslim if they believe in more than one God. Now the Qur'an says, beautifully, it says, مَا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ وَلَدٍ وما كان معه من إله إذا لذهب كل إله بما خلق ولا على بعضهم على بعض. That Allah has not taken a son and there was no God with him. If that had been the case, each of the gods would have taken what they have created and they would have tried to dominate one another. Now this is very important. When we say we believe in God, one of the characteristics of God is that He is all powerful. He is all powerful. Now what does it mean to be all powerful? That means that there's nothing or no one that is more powerful than you. That's what all powerful means. Now if you're saying there's nothing or no one that's more powerful than you, that means that no one can beat you. No one can dominate you. No one can finish you. Except for that little boy. Okay? That's something else. But this is the idea. So when you say Allah is all powerful, fine, you believe in an all-powerful God. What it means to be God is that you're all-powerful. That's one of the characteristics of God. You're all-powerful. Now, how is it possible that you can have more than one all-powerful being or entity? This is actually impossible. Say, for example, you have two gods. God 1 and God 2. God 1 is all-powerful, God 2 is all-powerful. We put them in a fight together. Who wins? What, is it going to be a draw? How could the all-powerful one, he doesn't know how to fight, he doesn't know how to beat the other one? What is it going to be? God 2 beats God 1. That means God 1 was never a God in the first place. God 1 beats God 2. That means God 2 was never a God in the first place. Which means the fact that you cannot have more than one all-powerful entity. So when the Christians say we believe the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and they say the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God. You say the Father is all-powerful, the Son is all-powerful, and the Holy Spirit is all-powerful. Okay, who is going to win in a fight now? You put Jesus and the Holy Spirit. What's it going to be? Dana White in the middle or something? Who's going to win? It beggars belief. It's impossible. God cannot be dominated, cannot be defeated. You see? So we say there cannot be more than one more powerful agent. Simple, isn't it? You say God is all powerful. That's what the definition of God is. There can only be one of them. There can only be one of them because you can't have more than one of them. Is this easy or not? So we'll leave it as that. Who wants to be the volunteer for this one? No, you've already had your turn, my friend. Okay. Okay, yes, all right, let's see. Go. What's your name? Sammy. Sammy, yeah? Oh, mashallah. Very nice, very nice. Who else wants to be a volunteer? Okay, you. Oh, we're getting the children involved today. Come on, come on. I wonder what his name is. You already look like, mashallah, you go to university, you this and that. Yeah? Oh, what's your name, brother? Omar, how old are you? Mashallah, all the 9-year-olds are coming. You know what it was, year 5 reunions. Year 5, they're coming over. Okay, there you go. So what you're going to do, brother, is you're going to ask him. He's pretending he's a Christian, okay? He believes the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God, yeah? And you're going to say, is the Father the all-powerful one? He says, yes. He says, the Son is all-powerful. Which one is more powerful? That's all you're going to say, yeah? And whatever he says is going to be wrong, okay? Don't worry about it.
Is the Son all-powerful?
Well, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, they're... The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, they're all the same. like the Trinity. We worship.
He sounds like an atheist as well. well, yeah, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, yeah. I like this guy. He's really good, man. Mashallah. So you put the action there. Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Is the Son God?
Yes.
I don't think so.
How come?
Because how can the Son be God if there's already a God? And who created the Son?
The Father created the Son.
Who's the Father?
God.
This is actually how it sounds like at the highest levels. This is how it sounds like at the highest levels. Wallahi, well done. Thank you very much. Takbir. Thank you very much, my friend. I like that. Thank you. You see, there you go. I like his accent. It's not a Luton accent. I know that much. So this is the O. I'm just giving you one small argument for each one. Obviously, we can go into great detail, but we won't have the time. Now, the next part is, so what does G stand for?
God.
Say it a bit louder. God. Say it one more time. God. What about O? What does it stand for? Oneness. Say it one more time. One more time. Okay, brilliant. So now we've done G, or we've done O. Now we're doing revelation. R is for revelation. So put this down. R stands for revelation. So after we've showed them that God exists and that God is one, we need to show them that Prophet Muhammad is a true prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also that the Qur'an is from God. Now the first thing we've already explained, we have to explain to them what the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. The message was to worship one God. And this was the same message as Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and all of them. Abraham couldn't have been a Christian. Do you know why? Why couldn't Abraham be Christian? Put your hands up and tell me, somebody. Yes. Huh? Yes, yeah, he came before Jesus. How could he be, if Christian means follower of Christ, Abraham came before Jesus, how could he be a Christian? That's why the Qur'an says, مَا كَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَهُودِيًّا وَلَا نَصْرَانِيًّا وَلَكِنْ كَانَ حَنِيفًا مُسْلِمًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. That Abraham wasn't a Jew, because Judaism comes from Judah. Do you know who Judah is? He's one of the great-grandchildren of Abraham himself. So he couldn't have been following his great-grandchild, and he wasn't a Christian because he wasn't following Christ. He came thousands of years before Christ. وَلَكِنْ حَنِيفًا مُسْلِمًا. He was upright, and he was a Muslim, meaning he submitted himself to Allah. He worshipped Allah. So you explain to them that our message is that you just worship and submit yourself to Allah. That's the first thing you have to do. The message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was no different from the message of Abraham, was no different from the message of Moses, was no different from the message of all of this, Jesus as well, himself, yeah? And so on. After you've done that, you show, okay, what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam come with? He came with the Qur'an. Now the Qur'an, it makes a series of challenges. The first thing the Qur'an talks about is preservation. That the Qur'an is preserved. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّ لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We have certainly sent down the book and we have certainly preserved it. Meaning it's preserved. Number two, the Qur'an states if it was مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ, if it was from other than God, there would have been in it many contradictions. Why? Because the Qur'an makes so many claims about nature, about history, about law, about this and that. If someone making so many claims about the nature of the world, the universe, and politics, and economy, and all this kind of thing, and he's not a specialist in all these matters, this is going to be bound to be contradictions here, right? But there's no contradictions, and that's what the Qur'an is the only book that even challenges humankind to find contradictions within it. The Bible doesn't even do that. So number one, it's preserved. Number two, it has no contradictions. And number three, it challenged the Arabs of the time to produce something like it. فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring a chapter like it. Now, why didn't someone come out and say, actually, I've got something? And some people actually tried to, like Musaylim al-Kadhab and these individuals. They tried to produce something like it, and everyone laughed at them. Because they knew the Qur'an had special properties when it came to the Arabic language. It de-scoped the Arabic language. So much so that even the adversaries, meaning the enemies of Islam, they acknowledged that the superiority of the Arabic language of the Qur'an was higher than every poetry that was existed at the time. And these guys were very good at poetry. You know, these guys were very good at poetry. They loved poetry. So they knew they could distinguish between good poetry and bad poetry. Good literature and bad literature. Right? So these individuals, they realized that there's something about the Qur'an here that's different from the poetry, that's different from all these other things. So the first thing is what we said is preservation. We can argue for preservation of the Qur'an. You can't argue for preservation of any other ancient religious book like this. Number two, lack of contradictions. The Qur'an is the only religious book that even makes a challenge like that. Number three, we talked about the superiority of the Arabic language, that it challenged other people to bring something like it. Number four, and this is important now, is that the Qur'an and the Sunnah, it makes prophecies about the future. Because someone will say, well, Arabic language, I don't know how to speak Arabic, I don't know these things, how do I know? So if I know, probably you don't know, you don't need to know. Because we say that actually, look at the testimonies of those particular specialist Arabs that were even against Islam, like Al-Walid ibn Mughira, who said that it is something like, it's unmatched basically. This book is unmatched. He was an enemy of Islam, but he said this. But the point is, the fourth thing is prophecies. And there are many things, I can name 15, 20, but I'm just going to name like 5 or 6, just to give you some things to talk about, yeah? If you are going to be a non-Muslim. For example, in chapter 30, verses 1 to 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions the Romans. Because what happened at the time was that the Roman Empire was there, and the Persian Empire was there. It says, غُلِبَتْ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ فِي بِضْعِ سِنِينَ لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ بَعْدُ وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. That the Romans have been defeated in a nearby lowland, and that in 3 to 9 years that they will be victorious again. And that وَعْدَ اللَّهِ لَا يُخْلِفُ اللَّهُ وَعْدَهُ. This is the promise of God. Now imagine this now, who watches football here? You watch, what team do you support? Man United. Well, you guys have Ronaldo's come back now, you know, this kind of thing, but where are they in the Premier League? Are they 6th? So even this guy couldn't help you. SubhanAllah. You watch football. Who else watch football? Yeah? Liverpool. Okay, at least you got a Muslim, like a well-known Muslim in your team, Mohammed Salah. He's also an Egyptian guy. Oh, you got Mane as well. I think he's, yeah, very good, yeah? Very good, mashallah. Who else? Where's the Luton teams? Yeah? Luton United. So you got something, yeah? Luton. What are they? Division 2 or something?
No, Championship.
What are they called?
Championship.
Championship. What are they called? Luton Town. Yeah, you know. Let's pretend Luton Town is going to face Manchester United. Okay? And it's in the Premier. Luton Town gets up to the Premier League. Yeah? Status. Okay? Something miraculous happens. The brother here in the front that came up, Sammy, he gives them a bit of pep talk with his posh accent. You guys have got to change your ways. And they changed their ways, and they've been making it to the Premiership League. And they face Manchester United. Who's the top players, the strikers and whatever for Luton Town? Probably some unknowns that none of you know who they are. No disrespect to them, you know. But Luton Town plays Manchester United. And I come in front of everybody. Or somebody, let's not say me. Someone comes and says, I am getting revelations from God. The all-knowing one, the one who knows everything, has come to me, and he said that Luton Town will beat Manchester United 4-1. Imagine this happens, yeah? And it will happen in 2 years' time or something, yeah? Or it's going to happen next season, or something like that, yeah? And then they play, and everyone's watching to see if this guy is true or not. To see if he's really being inspired by God like he says he is. Because this is going to prove him right or wrong. It's done. And then they play. And Luton Town comes, and the striker's there, and he's about to score, and oh, he misses. And all of a sudden, your favorite player, Cristiano Ronaldo, he scores the first goal. And you think maybe he said 4-1, right? So maybe maybe he can still be right. And then you go to the second half. And then he scores another goal. And then he scores a third goal. What's going on here? And then he scores a fourth. And then it's 5-1. Or 5-0 to Manchester United. And the guy comes back out and he said, you know, I told you so. And this and that. His career is over. No one's going to believe that he is inspired from God, isn't it? But isn't it a risk to say that something's going to happen like that in the future? You don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, there is obviously a chance. Luton still have a chance. You know, they've got the poor technology and the £1 shops and all this kind of thing. But they still have a chance against Manchester United. But he has a very slim chance. But the Prophet, he came out, he recited the Qur'an. He said 3 to 9 years, the Romans have been destroyed, defeated. But in 3 to 9 years, the Qur'an states, they will defeat the Persians. And the Persians were destroying everyone. They had been an empire for thousands of years. And 8 years later, exactly what the Qur'an says happened. And is it according to just us? You can say, well, that's according to Muslim sources. But it's actually even according to Roman historians, like the Chronicles of Theophanes, which mentions explicitly that this war took place 8 years after, and that the Romans beat the Persians just like the Quran stated. So what does that do now? It makes us think this guy is speaking the truth, because it was a very unlikely event and it happened the way he said it would happen. But this is just one event. Imagine the Quran and the Sunnah, it tells us so many different things where Islam is going to spread. It's going to spread to Egypt and Yemen and Levant and Rome. It's going to go all these places. It's going to go to As-Sind wal-Hind, which is Pakistan and India. It's going to go this place and that place. Look how much of it has come true. It tells us, the Prophet told us about the future, how the global economy is going to be based on interest. مَنْ لَمْ يَأْكُلْهُ, he said. أَصَابَهُ مِنْ غُبَارِهِ. Whoever doesn't consume interest, he will not be able to escape his dust. That's why he said. He said that you will not be able to avoid interest. That's a deep economic insight. He even talked about sexually transmitted diseases. That there will be new ones. The invention, the advent of them. Not just that they will spread, but there will be new ones. HIV, AIDS, gonorrhea. Exactly what's happening. So, I would say mention 2 or 3 points. You can mention the wrong thing I've just mentioned. You can mention the interest thing. You can mention where Islam is going to spread. And that should be enough to at least arouse their curiosity. But is this not evidence? Of course it's evidence. Because many people have come and they said things are going to come in the future and they never happen. So when Allah and the Messenger say things are going to happen in the future, they happen exactly like that. So I'll leave it as that, these 3 things. Talk about preservation. Well, actually, let me ask you. So what did we say? Number 1 is what? Preservation of the Quran. It's preserved. Number 2, we said lack of contradictions. We said that, something about the Arabic language. The superiority, the challenge, yeah? And the superiority of the Arabic language, even as admitted by the enemies of Islam. And then we said number 4 is what? Prophecies. I'll give you one more to make it 5. Do you know what they say? They say Muhammad copied from the Jews and the Christians. This is what they say. They say, how did, because you see, the Quran has stories which are similar to what you find in the Old Testament, Moses, Abraham, this, that, yeah? So they say he must have copied it, from the Jews that were living there, or the Christians that were living there, yeah? It's very interesting to note something. That when the Quran talks about stories which are the same stories as those that are mentioned in the Bible, sometimes it corrects those stories in light of new historical developments. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, in Surah Yusuf, chapter 12 of the Quran, Joseph, he speaks to the supreme leader of Egypt. And what does he refer to him as? He refers to him as king, Malik. Whereas in the Bible, in Genesis, Joseph speaks to the supreme leader of Egypt and he says what? He calls him Pharaoh. But we know, and even historians have now, it's almost consensus, it is consensus, that at the time of Joseph, there was no pharaohs in Egypt. There was only kings in Egypt. It was called the Hiscox dynasty. The pharaohs only started to be known in what you call the New Kingdom, at the time of Moses, etc. So if the Qur'an is copying from the Bible, how comes it's correcting it? How can anyone know that? Because no one had access to the hieroglyphic language. The hieroglyphic language was a dead language and only became alive after this thing called the Rosetta Stone came, and then they started to unpack the language. Can you imagine? And this happened in the 1700s. There are things that in the Qur'an, for example, Allah, He mentions about Pharaoh of Moses. He says, فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً. Today we will preserve your body so that you can be a sign for those who come after you. Now we know, the majority of historians say, and it's a very strong opinion, that the Pharaoh of the Old Testament was Ramses II. Why did they say that? Because the one who came after him, a man called Merempetah, he had a stele, like a rock. And he wrote in the rock, and when we banished the people of Israel, blah, 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 blah. So this is evidence that there was a children of Israel that living in Egypt at that time, and this evidence is not in the Bible even. It's a stone, yeah? So what we're saying is, Ramses II, his body was excavated recently. And now we have his body. The Qur'an says we will preserve his body. The Bible doesn't say anything like that. So here again you have evidence, historical evidence, from the Qur'an that the Prophet could never have access to. And you know what? The Qur'an makes this argument. The Qur'an states, تِلْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهَا إِلَيْكَ مَا كُنْتَ تَعْلَمُهَا أَنْتَ وَلَا قَوْمُكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ هَذَا فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ الْعَاقِبَةَ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. He said, these are from the stories of the unseen. We will tell you it. You didn't know it, O Muhammad. Allah is speaking to Muhammad and He says, you did not know these stories. You and your people didn't know it. He says, so be patient, because the good ending will be for the patient ones. The point is, if they say that the Prophet Muhammad copied from Jewish sources and from Christian sources, how come this is correcting them? Or the information that could never have been known at that time, and some of it has only been excavated recently. And it's corrective information. So here I've given you 5 things. Let's go over that one more time. Number them was preservation. What was number 1? Preservation. Number 2 was lack of contradiction. Number 3 was? We said that's number 2. Number 3 was? Yeah, so language. Yeah? Number 4, prophecies. Number 5 is history. Or you could call it corrective history. Do you want me to give you one more? Or should we go into question and answers? Put your hands up if you want one more. Okay, I'll give you one more. Okay? One more, I'll just give it quickly, yeah? It's the structure of the Qur'an. The structure of the Qur'an is knitted together in a very delicate and interwoven way. The Qur'an, it was revealed circumstantially, meaning someone would come to the Prophet Muhammad, yeah? They would ask him a question, and then the Prophet would answer in the form of the Qur'an. He would answer what? In the form of the Qur'an. So did he have any time to think about it? No. And if so, it was answering a question. He couldn't have known what the person was going to ask anyway, right? But despite the fact that the Qur'an was revealed in a way which for the most part was spontaneous, when you look at the Qur'an, it's very much one solid structure from beginning to end. And I'll give you an example. And I'll tell you what I mean first. The chapters of the Qur'an, they're all, the ones that are next to each other are all connected to each other. So the beginning of the chapter and the end of the chapter has ties. The end of a chapter, the beginning of a chapter has ties. It keeps going like that throughout the whole Qur'an. To demonstrate this, there's 114 chapters. Choose 2 numbers that are next to each other from 1 to 114. Any 2 numbers you like. I know I sound like a clown right now. Well, go ahead. No, next to each other. Like 1 and 2, 2 and 3, like 2 next to each other. Okay, 97 and 98. Chapter 97 is Surah Al-Qadr. And chapter 98 is Surah Al-Bayyinah. Now, if you look at Surah Al-Qadr, it's talking about what? Laylatul Qadr, which is what? Night of decree. It's talking about when the Qur'an was revealed. So it's talking about when the Qur'an was revealed. But chapter 98 is talking about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who it was revealed to, and that he was the evidence. So you have a continuation of theme from when it was revealed to who it was revealed to, right next to each other. Although, once again, how can you organize it in that manner? So that's one example. Let's do someone else. Choose two numbers. Any numbers you like? Yes?
50 to 71.
50? No. Just two numbers next to each other. 50, 51. 50 is Surah Al-Qaf. Chapter 51 is Surah Dariyat. What you'll find is that in the beginning of Surah Al-Qaf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a strong theme of the Day of Judgment. There's a strong theme of the punishment of the Day of Judgment, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how He will reward the believers and how He will punish the disbelievers. And He talks about the characteristics of the believers. And He talks about the characteristics of the disbelievers. And in chapter 51 you'll find the same thing. But instead of punishment in this dunya, you'll find the punishment, instead of punishment of the akhirah, like in chapter 50, you'll find punishment of the dunya. So in chapter 51 it talks about the Qawm of Lut and the others, how they were destroyed. It talks about the fact musawwamatan 'inda rabbik, that is the pelted stones were thrown. And it gives you the same kind of characteristics of the believers. That in the mornings they istaghfirun, they do istighfar. So the characteristics of the believers is a theme that runs through chapter 50 and chapter 51 and chapter 52 and so on. So these themes are very carefully and meticulously imprinted in the Qur'an. Now it can't be both, that the Qur'an, the Prophet, he knew how to answer these questions and how to structure these things in that way. So the sixth evidence, therefore, is the structure of the Qur'an is very carefully crafted. So these are evidences that the Prophet Muhammad was a true prophet. And you can add to these evidences that his life, because we know he was offered everything. He was offered women, money, this, that, all the things that why people do things. He was offered it, and he rejected these things. Even if it meant that he could put his life in danger, that he was disenfranchised, that he was poor. SubhanAllah, the Prophet didn't live a very easy life. You know, one time they saw him under a tree, praying, sleeping. You know, and he had marks on his back. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, مَا لِي وَلِلدُّنْيَا مَا أَنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا كَرَاكِبٍ اسْتَظَلَّ تَحْتَ شَجَرَةٍ فَرَاحَ فَتَرَكَهَا. That I'm just in the world like a rider, someone who rides a horse. And then he spent some time under the tree, the shade under the tree. He had a rest and he left. Meaning he wasn't interested in dunyawi pursuits. Just look at his life. He was not a materialistic person. He used to spend most of his night praying. Imagine spending like Tawweeh. You spend 1 hour, we want to go home. Imagine spending 3-4 hours every night. As wajib for the Prophet to pray like that and to be like that. So his life, and then fighting, and then this, marriage, 9 wives at the same time. 9 wives at the same time? This is very difficult. And they use that against the Prophet. They say, look, he's a womanizer, so he has 9 wives. Well, the one who's womanizing, he doesn't want to be committed to anybody. If I'm womanizing, I'm going from one woman to the other woman. I'm not responsible for anything. I just keep going, one next, like that. But imagine having 9 that you have to continually maintain. You have to hear their problem. You have to listen to their... Try doing it with 2, or 3, or 4. This is like hell. It's very difficult. Now imagine 9. He's got 9 wives. He's fighting. He's not telling the people to fight him, and then he's staying at home, having a good time, tea, and just like what these people do nowadays. Like these leaders of the world. They say, go and fight, and then they stay, you know, in the office, in the White House, and they do nothing. But he was fighting himself, defending himself and his community from the transgressions of the people. Putting himself in danger every single time. Drinking water and eating dates, like had a very poor life. His wife sometimes will complain about this. Very difficult life. And they told him, if He said, if you want this, if you want women, if you want this, we'll give it to you. So his life story itself is evidence that he was a truthful man. Wallahi is the best, one of the best evidences. And so you should tell the person that you're trying to bring to Islam some of these things, because a lot of them, they don't know it. Okay? So that's all, inshallah. And since we've gone on for 35 minutes, is that right? 35 minutes? We'll leave it there, because otherwise you guys are going to get tired. We've got questions and answers, so we'll leave it until next time, inshallah. You guys should role play with each other and see how this works, yeah? And inshallah, try it with your non-Muslim neighbors. Try this with like a person in your school, or a colleague, but do it slowly and strategically. Don't just go, you're working, I don't know where you're working, Burger King or something, you should be working there anyways. But let's say you're working, I don't know where you're working. And then all of a sudden Barry starts hearing it. Barry, do you think we came from nothing? A lot of it is to do with how you conduct yourself. Some people, they require a little bit of harsh treatment, but those are the minority, by the way. The majority of people require speech, adab, speech, nice, all this kind of thing. So when you get your chance, inshallah, do that, and we'll open it to questions and answers, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, bro. Allah reward you. Brothers and sisters, the floor is open for questions now. Anyone wants to ask freely, we want to hear you. Well, Hijab is inshallah going to address those questions. We have some questions that we received on that email, on the website, sorry. Inshallah, we'll address them, but we want to do live one first, inshallah. Those of you who want to ask, inshallah, please.
Alright. Do you want to go on the microphone so they can hear it as well? Inshallah.
I see you debating, brother, on red pill theory. I'm debating myself, so you've done a better job of it than what I did, okay?
Yes.
So how much of a problem do you think red pill is, or going to be, and what's your what do you think the solution should be for the predominantly younger Muslim men that are getting wrapped up in it? Because older guys like me are not bought into it, but the younger guys, I can see the allure and the attraction for the younger Muslim men. So how much of a problem, and how do you advise that they deal with it?
I don't think it's as big a problem as we think it is.
It's not.
Yeah, it's when you look at it's how much it occupies the internet space. It doesn't really. I mean, there's 3 or 4 big channels, and they don't really affect our communities as much. It's only starting to do that, and so I don't think we need to. We don't have to. We shouldn't have a disproportionate response to it. It's not like feminism compared to red pill is like a mountain compared to like I don't know, a sandcastle or something like that. So we should focus our efforts on feminism. The red pill is a reaction to feminism in a sense, but obviously it goes further than that, and it has all these attitudes that we don't accept as Muslims. And so, in a sense, we do need to educate young men and to take responsibility, because at the end of the day, that's one thing the red pill movement doesn't do. It doesn't imbue a sense of responsibility in young people. And I feel like that's one thing, that's a good way to counter it. Islam tells us, as a man, you have to be financially responsible, you have to be protected. When you get married, you have to protect your wife, you have to protect your kids. You have to be willing to die for your wife and children. If someone comes and fights, you have to be willing to pay for them. Generosity, don't be a bakhil, don't be stingy. This is one of the worst and unmanly traits in Islam. At their youth is one of the worst and unmanly. A man doesn't care, his wife, his sister, this and that, she's going out with boys and this and that. Someone who doesn't care about that, it means that they're their youth. Which means that they are someone who doesn't care about the honor of his women. And that Allah will humiliate them on the day of judgment. So they have to be angry about that stuff. But it doesn't mean you're going to go and do something to your sister or something. I'm not saying you have no control, but I'm saying at least feel angry. من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده ومن لم يستطع فبلسانه ومن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. Whoever sees something wrong, he should hate it he should change it with his hand, and if he can't do it with his tongue, if not with his heart. So in other words, these things are things which are against Islam, and that red pill endorses. It says just leave the woman, let her do what she wants. Don't spend on her, don't be responsible. So these things, we have to outline what exactly our beef with them is, and then explain to them that this is against Islam. And if they insist, subhanAllah, one time I was speaking to one of these brothers, and I said, one of the things that you have to do is you serve your family and stuff. And I think he replied, he said, you're a simp. He said something like, there's a word that you use, simp, yeah? I said, no problem with simp. There's a bab in Bukhari, like a chapter heading. And it basically says that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ كان يخدم أهله, that the Prophet ﷺ used to serve his family. And Aisha radiallahu anha said, كان في مهنة أهله, he was in the service of his family. And all the shurah say, يعني في خدمة أهله. Khidmah literally means servant, service. So in Arab culture we have a saying, Sayyid al-Qawm, Khadim al-Qawm Sayyiduhum, that the servant of the people is their leader. So we have to have a completely different attitude here. What they call simp, then you show them the hadith and they keep going like this and they attack the Prophet. He was the bigger man than all of them. Most of them are insecure, by the way, these guys. A guy that has to feel like, I'm a man and this and that, keep talking about how big of a man you are. You don't need to talk about it, just show it. They say, show it, don't say it. This is one of the things that you show, you don't say. But they have the opposite policy. Say it, don't show it. You know, and that's what needs to be, and will be exposed, because their leaders are not, like, they're not known for bravery, they're not known for courage, they're not known for generosity, and so on. And so they will be exposed effectively. I think what's going to end them is a scandal of some sort. But Islam has a completely different model, and it goes against rapport in so many areas, and therefore it's only a matter of time until. But they're puny in number, so we shouldn't overestimate or have a disproportionate response to them. That's what I would say. Yes, Sammy, brother, in your accent. Please.
Christians say that the Father, Son, Holy Ghost is three in one. Is the mother like can the mother be a sister or a daughter all in one? What's your answer to that?
Yeah, so Islam makes a polemical case against the fact that Mary is basically not God. So some Christians say Islam mistakenly says that the Trinity includes Mary. Yeah? But this is false, because actually, according to especially Catholic belief, they call her the Mother of God. And they worship her. They do worship her. It's not like a controversial thing I'm saying. They do the actions of worship directed to Mary. For us, if you do that, then you have taken them as a God. That's what it means. You take them as a God. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. When Allah in the Qur'an, he said in chapter 9 verse 30, he said that they took their monks and priests as God besides Allah. And then Ali ibn Hatim, who used to be a Jew, he said, we didn't used to take them as Jews, we didn't used to take them as gods. He said, Prophet Muhammad said to him, did he not make halal what they made haram? So this is a different form of worship. So they worship the mother in a way. And we would say, therefore, the Qur'an makes a polemical case against them for this reason. Yeah. So we would say that the way you treat Mary is the way you would treat a god. And as such, Islam directs a message against you to stop effectively worshipping Mary. This is the idea. I hope that answers the question. Or yeah, okay. Anyone
Brothers
else?
at the back, anybody? Yes.
Being someone who's relatively learned in secular studies and Islamic sciences, how would you say or give advice to young people these days on balancing their secular studies with Islamic studies?
Honestly, the first thing is you have to prioritize Islamic studies. Obviously, you've got your school and stuff, and don't ever quit that. I'm a big believer of education, and especially in the UK, we don't want to admit it, but they do have education which is superior to many parts of the world. Maybe not in every subject, like not in mathematics. I don't think, not in mathematics. To be fair, mathematics it's not that good in the UK. Hey, it's fine. Probably Pakistan. I would say Pakistan probably is better in something like that. But in science, the UK is very, very good. In English, obviously, for obvious reasons, it's very good. English literature and all the kind of things. And in social sciences, it's actually very good as well. So try and take as much as you can from the system. Because one of the great advantages of being in the UK, where most of you would not have been here, if your parents didn't make some kind of a decision, or your great-grandparents or whatever it was, but by the looks of you guys and the sound of your accent, probably your parents, or even you came to the boat yourself. You can see the boats outside, But take advantage of the situation. I mean, me as well. That's not like I'm a white man, But, take advantage of this, because wallahi, education is not, we don't do it just to get a job. We do it because it actually arms us. It arms us with the ability to speak, the ability to make arguments, which is one of the most powerful things you can have. What you are able to say is more powerful than what you're able to do. Sometimes. I mean, obviously not all the time, right? But in this society that we live in, your intellect will supersede your physical strength. And I'm not saying don't invest in physical strength. I'm a big believer as well in martial arts, in having martial literacy, in being able to defend yourself, in being a good grappler, strike, this and that, someone punch you in the face, what are you going to do? You run away, what are you going to do? You need to have some, okay, this is what to do, you know. You need to, what I would say is activate your sympathetic nervous system. You have something in the body called the sympathetic nervous system, you have the autonomic nervous system, and then you have the parasympathetic nervous system. When you eat food and you drink, the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. It's rest and digest. So I'm drinking this coffee now, the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. But if someone comes with a knife or tries to run or rob you or something, what happens is it's something called fight or flight response. So the sympathetic nervous system, your pupils dilate, you sweat, you get your heartbeat, all this kind of thing. If you don't know how to react when that stuff happens, you'll be at a great disadvantage. And you'll probably get bullied in school, and you'll hate yourself for the rest of your life. Oh, this guy, he comes every time, he grabs you up like that and pushes you to the wall and so you need to change your ways. Don't let that happen. Whether you're a man or a woman, you need to activate your sympathetic nervous system. You need to be martially literate, and you also need to be literate when it comes to the grand narratives of the world. But obviously, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you, the Prophet said, are those who learn the Qur'an and teaches it. So all of that is very important, but the most important thing is an ilm al-shar'i, Islamic knowledge. Because this is, you're learning the hudud of Allah. You're learning the limits of God that you shouldn't transgress. You're learning the communication of God. I'm asking you a question. If you have parents or a loved one or something, someone you love, and they spoke a different language, or they were deaf, would you not learn sign language or that language that they speak so that you can communicate with them? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we're meant to love the most, we don't want to learn the Fusha Arabic language of the Qur'an. We are lazy with this. But if we love Him that much, we should learn that language. And by the way, no one speaks that language. Even the Arabs don't speak it. We have to learn, everyone has to learn that. So don't think you're at a great disadvantage. No, it can happen. Give yourself 6 months to 2 years. Make a program for yourself to learn the Arabic language. Make a program for yourself to memorize the Qur'an, understand what's going on, and to learn the basics of each Islamic science. It's very important. Ibadah, Aqidah, all of those things. So I would say that if you're not doing that, you're failing. You are failing. And there needs to be a change. And you have to make a change. And you have to put a program in place. Let me tell you something, yeah? When I was about 16 years old, maybe your age, 15, yeah? Yeah, 10, 11, maybe 11, 12. I put up, and I found this. I went to my mum's house the other day and I found the paper, yeah? I put on a piece of paper what I want to achieve when I'm 25. This is what I've done. I said, I want to achieve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, yeah? I said, now I've got to ask myself, what do I do to get to that? So I put myself a program, and literally like a spreadsheet type program, every week I have to fulfill this quota. And not only that, every day I have to fulfill this quota. When you start taking things seriously, when you start taking life seriously, life starts taking you seriously. As the Arabs say, man jadda wajad. Whoever gets serious will find what they're looking for. So what I'm saying is, if you don't have a plan, plan to fail. If you fail to plan, plan to fail. You've got to have a proper plan. A plan for your physical, for your mental, for your spiritual, and mind, body, and soul. You have a good plan for your family, for yourself. And once you have that plan, then you can move towards that plan. But if you leave yourself just like that, and just on TikTok and this Instagram and whatever, YouTube and this and that, watching my memes and laughing and I'm in the background doing some hard work, and you're watching my memes, then it's just like, give them bread, give them wine, as they say, You're just watching TV, you're a waste man, sorry to say, or something. So you're going to let your life Hassan al-Basri said something. He said that we are just a matter of days. We're physical bodies, yeah, but we're also days. And every day we lose a part of ourselves. It's like we're a snowman, and we're melting away. So before we melt away completely, let's get the things done that we need to get done. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. He said, make use of 5 things. And the word ghanima, by the way, comes from the Arabic word meaning war booty. When you go into war and you find treasures. اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. One of the things that he said, make use of 5 things before 5 things come. He said, شَبَابَكَ قَبْلَ هِرَمِكَ. He said that your youth before your old age. So make sure you're making use of this time. It's not going to come back to you. And Qur'an and this and that, it will give you a real sense of solidity, anchorage, strength. You know? If you don't have that, wallahi, when you're 25, 26, 27, you're going to look back and think, I wish I did it. You're going to regret it. And let me tell you one last thing about this. The pain of discipline is less than the pain of regret. Let me say that one more time. Or let me put it another way. The pain of regret is more than the pain of discipline. So when you get to 25, 35, whatever, you're going to look back and say, oh, I wish. But the pain of getting yourself disciplined now is less than the pain of regret. So get disciplined. This is a very important thing to do. Have a program for yourself.
Bro, we've got a question which is quite relevant to a young generation regarding LGBT. How do you tackle LGBT studies towards youth in secular education system? And if Muslim individuals have endorsed the movement, how does anyone give advice?
Look, we have to treat it like a religion. I was just on Twitter the other day, and I saw a man. Oh. I don't know what to say. And he was like, wearing like, women's clothing. Or maybe it was a woman, I don't know. Whatever, that person. I saw a person wearing, and it was saying, it was meant for kids, yeah? He's saying, there's all kinds of genders nowadays. There's man, there's woman, there's this, cis, this, boom, 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 boom. It was so confusing, even for me. I was thinking, how is a child going to know this? This is going to be a difficult one to market to a 10-year-old, yeah? But the thing is, I was thinking, wow, 100 years from now, when the historians get their hands on this information, and the anthropologists, which are people who look at civilization and stuff, yeah? What are they going to say? Do you know what I think they're going to call this? Western mythology. You know what myth is? Like fictions and stories. And when you have a Korean man, a white man, yeah, there's a video of a white man on YouTube. I'm not talking about somewhere. He comes out and he says, I am a Korean. He says, I am a Korean. And he was being so forceful about it. I identify as a Korean man, blah, 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 blah. Imagine now you're a historian in the year 2100, and you see this information. There's a white Caucasian man saying that he identifies as a Korean man, which is a different ethnicity, a different race, a different set of genetics, which is basically it's against the reality that we see. It's against the scientific reality. How are they going to classify such a thing? It has to be classified as myth. So what is the difference between LGBTQ in that regard, like what you call queer theories and the pronouns? What's really the difference between this and Hinduism? Where they have like, Ganesh and, the gods with 8 arms and all of that kind of thing. No, they can imagine as well. Because what happened is, and you've got to think about it, when you remove religion from the public psyche, we're talking about irreligiosity of the West, they make their own religions now. And this is their religion. It's not called a religion, but it is a religion. So we have to treat it just like a religion. So just like before in the past, we used to teach our kids, this is Hinduism, this is Christianity, this is what they believe, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, like we were doing today. We say, and this is the queer LGBT understanding of the world. This is an understanding. This is what they understand. They have their own sets of mythologies, which is an interesting type of mythology. Because usually myth works in history, like how this happened in the past or whatever, but they have a present day mythology. So they mythologize themselves. They're making themselves out to be like superheroes and this and that, Batman, this and we can say what you want. So that's how you should teach your children. But we have to own the narrative. It's wrong to say, well, we're going to close our ears of the children so they don't hear it. No, we should be the ones that tell the children about this. We explain to them ourselves, from our perspective, what this means. Why are there people, men and other men? The Qur'an talks about it, And wallahi, I'll tell you one more thing. I was deeply thinking about this mas'ala. Every prophet, when he comes to his people, what does he tell them? He tells them, worship Allah. A'budullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. Worship Allah, there's no other God. Do you know there's only one prophet in the whole Qur'an? In the whole Qur'an, that he went to their people, he didn't say this? He didn't start off by saying this. You know who it was? Lut alayhi salam. I was thinking about it. Why does it? Because وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا. Shu'aib came to his people. قَالَ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ. وإلى this Hud أخاهم صالحا. قَالَ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ. The Salih and this and Shu'aib and all of them come and say the same thing. مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ. Worship on God. But Lut, he didn't say that. Because the thing is with homosexuality as a disposition, it's so powerful that unless you deconstruct it, Tawheed cannot enter the hearts of the people. There's two things that take people away from Islam. Shubuhat, which are doubts, and shahawat, which are desires. Sometimes your desire can be so much that it intoxicates you and you cannot even think. Like imagine going to a person who's drunk and trying to explain to them Islam. Doing the go-rap with them. Will it be effective? Maybe they, by the way, we've done this and some of them become Muslim and the next day they don't even know what happens. Wallahi, they used to go to Leicester Square and they used to give dawah. I told them don't give dawah to the drunk. They still give dawah. And they'll come out and this is some of the women, you know, they come out and they do all kinds of naughty stuff and say, Astaghfirullah, what are you doing? Say, no, I've become Muslim, this and that, you know. I believe in God, you know. Say Ashhadu, and the guy's getting so excited. You don't believe in God. So do you believe in this? And they'll finish the deal. Not in the way that you think. They said, let's finish the deal. Not in that way. No, in the way that, yeah? But what I'm saying is, so there's likewise someone who has strong shahwat, which could be in the form of homosexuality, could even be in the form of heterosexuality, anything. But you need to calm that guy down first. You need to deconstruct what they believe. You've got to get them back to a state of normality and then you give da'wah to them. Yes, desires calm it down a bit. So we have to explain to our youth, from our perspective, why this is false, like anything else. We have to explain to them why it's false. And you can look at my videos online with homosexuals, how I discuss with them, and it's been very successful. Watch it and see how I do it. Because obviously I'm not going to explain it right now. But in a nutshell, the approach should be that we ourselves, in messages like these, we teach, we have a madda, we have a module, we have Qur'an, we have tajweed, we have usul, we have fiqh, and we have LGBT studies. And we're not doing it so we can please the prevent or whoever it is. We're doing it because we want our own narrative of that study to be there. If we don't teach it, you know what they're doing now with the Muslim, with Islam? In every university they have like Islamic Studies Society. And you see a zindiq there, kafir, telling them about how Islam is wrong, basically. Okay, if they can do, we can do. We have to own the narrative rather than running away from it. That's what I think we should do, inshallah. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. Brother, we took my turn. Now I forgot my question. But I wanted to say, brother, mashallah, you know, this is another niche for our young generation, and mashallah, you're an inspiration.
Please don't state the obvious in front of the people.
I've got one question for you, brother. You studied the philosophy and logic. How effective is this for da'wah? And also studying philosophy for our young brothers who are going to go to college and university here as well. A piece of advice. Studying philosophy often leads to doubts, like you said yourself. You're, trying to clarify doubts in Islam. So do you find that studying philosophy and logic is very effective for this generation and the upcoming generations?
I think logic is
in the da'wah.
Logic is a subset of philosophy, and it's not that hard to go through it. Like, there's a language called L1. It just tells you, like, if this happens and this happens, and you can learn it quite quickly. There's different languages of logic. You don't need to necessarily study those. You can study one or two of those L1, which is propositional logic or something like that. And I don't think it will help you. It's like mathematics, basically. Like, they'll tell you things like, this principle, it's like set theory and mathematics. It's like studying maths. So I think that it will sharpen your mind and it will strengthen your mind, and it's good for you in that sense. But you shouldn't go too deep into it, because like you said, especially with philosophy, it depends on who's teaching you. Now, if this person has got their own agenda, they're going to not be doing philosophy teaching to you, they're going to be doing da'wah to you. They're doing their own da'wah, whether it's feminism or liberalism or whatever, they've got their agenda that they want to spread to you. So you have to be careful. We're not saying that we shouldn't use rationality, but we've got to be careful who we take as our teachers with these kind of things. If we use rational arguments that are based on the Qur'an and Sunnah, and all that, I'm not against it, this is fine. We do this all the time. But if we go to somebody who's, I've seen it myself, people get doubts and stuff like that in university settings, it's not necessarily what I would advise, especially if you don't have a grounding in Islam.
So from your experience, have you seen the effectiveness in studying philosophy compared to not studying?
In terms of dawah to mainstream people and lay people, you don't need to have a deep philosophical argument. Honestly, you will not. It's not the best way to get so many converts. But this is to challenge the people at the highest echelons. The top people. If you want to make a career out of challenging people at the top echelons, then it's a must actually. It's not even. But if you don't and you just want to give dawah in your community or whatever, then you don't need this. Yeah, it depends on what your look. Everything depends on your objectives. If you don't, first we said you have to make a plan for yourself. But if you don't have objectives, you can't make a plan. And if in your objectives you want to do things which mean that you need to challenge certain people or do certain things, and that requires you to learn certain subjects, then that's a different discussion. But it's not one size fits all. You guys have to have your own objectives, and then you have to work backwards from those, instead of like there's one size fits all. You know, so it can work for some people, be beneficial for some people, but not beneficial for other people. You know, that's what I would say.
Jazakallah khair. One other question we received online. Go rap sounds like an amazing blueprint for Muslim da'wah.
Yeah.
What about giving da'wah to Muslims who are weak?
Do the same thing. Go rap works with Muslims that are weak as well. Because it's like they need to go through why they are Muslim in the first place. They need to go through the same exact process.
So we're living in a society now which is more, the mainstream media is pushing a right-wing narrative more and more as it goes along. In order to, because we're hating on people that are coming over in dinghies, but we're turning a blind eye to the government that are giving billions of pounds of contracts to their friends. Okay? So what they're trying to do is put the white working class over there and the brown and black Muslims over here. Okay? So you have two opposite sort of groups. What would your advice be to the brown and black Muslims, because most Muslims are in this country brown and black, in order to make that bridge between them and the white working class? I mean, my position is slightly different, being white working class, so I've got my own way of dealing with it, but what would you say to the rest of them?
What we've seen as being one of the most effective strategies is getting people from their own community who are Muslim like them, so white working class Muslims, like yourself. So, no, but there's enough of, I think that there's enough of white working class Muslim people to get in, to penetrate and to show that actually I'm a Muslim, this kind of thing. Because if they see one of their own, it's just exponentially more effective. If they see, the second best thing to do is get those people together, like to get the brown people together and the working class together and let them see that these guys are human. Do you know what I mean? That's something so simple, without even doing any da'wah, can be very effective. Yeah, or a gym or something. But gym is like, you're pumping away, you're not going to be speaking, like in a food environment or something like that. So somewhere where you can actually have conversations. But, yeah, those two things. There needs to be a mixing policy.
Muslims are shy to talk to. Most young Muslim men are shy to talk to white working class lads.
Yeah.
It is a invisible barrier.
And a lot of that is because a lot of these kind of right-wing types will not accept the conversation with them, or they show them disregard or discontent. So it requires a very patient person to look at the bigger purpose for that kind of thing. So yeah, I would agree. I would say that you need to have some people that are purpose-driven, that go into the communities and try and reach out. But from what we've seen on the ground, the things that work the best are people from the same community. I know it sounds quite cliched or whatever, but it works with black people, white people, and Asian people. If you have someone from their own community that can speak their language and they look like them, and there's actually studies that have been done on this. I forget the name of the study, but there's a very famous psychological study that was done on the train. I forget the name, if anyone knows, tell me, but like, for example, they'd get an actor, so a black guy, to have a crutches or something, and then he falls on the train. And then they'll see who's going to help him. So they see that usually it's black people that help other black people, and white people that help other white. A lot of it is still race driven. When we were thinking about going to Africa to do dawah, and we were thinking of doing like a debate in sub-Saharan Africa. So we thought about all the variables and why we didn't do it. It doesn't look good for a North African English-speaking person to go and debate a black person. Because when you watch football, there's a litmus test. Yeah, like, when you watch football, who do you usually support? The person who looks most like you. It's unfortunate. I'm not saying it should be the case. Obviously, as Muslims, we shouldn't be like that at all. But that is the the case. So we don't want to jeopardize or compromise the effectiveness of our strategies. And I feel like, in terms of best strategies, people that are most likely, so working class, if we can get working class Muslim men to go into working class right wing areas, they will probably be most effective. And if not, then the next best thing are people who understand the culture and who are purpose driven, that might be Asian or whatever, that's the next best thing.
So I'm working buildings.
Yeah.
I come across the EDL.
Yeah,
And
okay.
the National Fund.
Yeah.
And all of them. It's a need.
Yeah, okay. But so we need to get some more of you guys. That might be a better approach. Yeah, that's true. But this is what it's like. I'm good at this, yeah? How many Egyptians are you? 300 Egyptians. How many Somalis are you? Where's Somali? You Somali? Yeah? Inshallah. But you see, because that's how it is. But I agree with you, I do agree. But in terms of effectiveness, that's what we've seen as well. I'm just relaying the data. And we want to be most effective. Because smart work is better than hard work. Yeah. And we have seen that to be the most effective strategy. Anyway.
Jazakallah khair. One thing if I could add, maybe already because I said it, is before you start thinking about giving dawah to somebody, it's best to understand the person who you want to talk to, understand the likes, the dislikes, what they're into. So if he's into Man United, you don't want to take a Liverpool prop and start chatting. Yeah? You want to go something which he can feel friendly with, yeah? So that he opens up. Everyone's got a heart, everyone's got mind. If they can, they see you, judge you based on what they hear and see. So if they feel you're someone who's comfortable and they feel they can talk to, they'll open up, inshallah. Another question is, what are the biggest, this is organized by our youth wing of our masjid, mashallah. They reach out to the youth and mashallah, so that they can guide and help them, the youth areas. And there are many areas we find youth are not responding in, and they just shut off. Most of the people who are here today, mashallah, either they're watching you or others on the YouTube, they've got some kind of relationship with Islam, yeah? Many, probably vast majority are nowhere near. They're very into the wrong thing, yeah?
You stamped everyone here.
I'm grateful to all of you. We need to work together, yeah? Now, what's the biggest issues do the youth face in your experience in our time that we should all be maybe, every masjid, every community should be targeting and working towards?
So one of the things, as we said, is connection to the masjid themselves. And we need to have events for youth, like maybe get some PlayStation, some, I don't know, football, whatever these guys like. You want to one day be a Luton Town failure. No, I'm joking. Football player or something. Get one of those people to, to lead a football group or some other sports, martial arts, something like that. Food, PlayStation. If you have that stuff, they'll come. I believe that a lot of them will come, all of them, but some of them will come. In addition, I would say one of the biggest issues is the issue of zina. The issue of haram relationships, the issue of all these things, and the major cure for that in terms of how we can bridge the gap between the older generations and the young generations is simply to allow marriage to happen at a much younger age. I don't know how it is in the Baguli community in Luton, but in some cultures it's like, you don't, the older generations are reluctant to let their children go at a younger age. They have to finish all of these things first. But in the meantime, these people are doing haram, and the parents are oblivious to it, and they're dishonoring the family name and dishonoring themselves Islamically. And they become someone, and the parent is at home and doesn't know what's going on, but their daughter and or their son are doing haram relationship, going to the house, going to the shisha cafe, and maybe smoking some weed, maybe snorting something else, I don't know what they do here. Eating some, no, you don't really eat pork, I don't think that's what happens, I don't think so. But then going to some club. I don't know if there's any clubs here in Luton. Are there any clubs here in Luton? See, that was a trick question, isn't it? And so on, and so we need to realize that. So when someone is married, then at least they're protected from one perspective. But if you don't let your young child, not young child, your child, as in your child, who's over the age of 16, yeah, get married, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm talking about these ages. I got married at 20. Yeah. And I wish I got married at 18. You know, it's one of those things where you need to be protective. I'm not saying everyone should get married at 18, but some people are, oh, I'm not going to let my daughter get married until 35. Oh, subhanAllah. Well, even 25. It's a long time. It's a long time in the age that we live in, you know. So you need to, and then lower the standards, because otherwise people are going to be committing zina. What would you prefer? This is the khaf al-dararain now. We have to think usul fiqh. What would you prefer? Your daughter to be married in halal with a man. Maybe he's not fully established yet, but you know you can have a nikah together. It takes 5 minutes to do a nikah, really and truly. Yeah. So they can go out, and it's not boyfriend girlfriend. It's actual marriage. So it's fine. They go out. Maybe she lives in her house, and maybe it's a setup that's not fully developed yet. Would you prefer that, or that she's going out wearing this, and the other guys like? What would you prefer? And I don't want to tell you what the Hanafis say about the father's permission anyway. He'll tell you. But that's something else. I'm saying that we have to start being mature about this. We have to start we'll turn a blind eye to reality. This is one of the biggest things that are happening nowadays. People are committing zina. Fully fledged zina. They are doing haram, and they brag about it with other Muslims. So they'll do the haram things. I remember when I was younger, I'm not that much older than you. In fact, maybe younger than some of you, especially you. But
if you knew my age, bro, you didn't have said that.
Go on.
19, nearly.
Oh, subhanAllah. 19. He means 19 minus 100.
MashaAllah.
What again? So, when I was younger, I know this is going to sound whatever, but when I was in year like 10, 11, when I was in year 11, yeah? Definitely in year 12. I'm not sure how it is now. You guys, you're younger than me, tell me, please, yeah? In year 12, if you haven't had intercourse, you're seen as a loser. Is that how it is? It's not. Wallahi, it's how it was. Well, it's better now. Huh? No, but the broader, maybe because your school is all Muslim or something like that. Our school was like mixed. So when you're in year 12, and was it like that in your time as well? Say that again? Home educated, alhamdulillah. I can imagine that, the accent, it makes a lot of sense now. So, I'm home educated, you know? That's good, it's good, because I might get my son to be home educated as well, like, if that's good, if it's doing good for you. But what I'm saying is, you know, it's a thing, it's social pressure. You've never been out with someone, or you've never had a girlfriend. They start humiliating you and pressurizing you and these kind of things. I don't know how it is in Luton, maybe it's not as bad. Is it as bad? It is like that, yeah? It is, he's saying it is. But you're isn't it? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But, so what?
He's not even from Luton.
I don't know, but these are all pressures, yeah? Which we need to have a counter for. And so, you know, at the end of the day, if we have nikah is more accessible for the people, it's not a man or a young man, a young woman can go to their father and mother and actually have a conversation at the age of 18. I think if we achieve that, that's a lot to achieve. But, you know, I say, look, I don't want to get married straight away, but let's put a plan in place, because I know a person, blah, 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 just be open. And the parents have to be a bit more mature now. Because they say, no, shut up. Honestly, calm down. Because if you do that, then she's not going to tell you next time. He's not going to tell you next time. He's going to do it behind your back. You're going to go on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram and DM sliding this and that and that. SubhanAllah. And so we've got to do it the right way. We have to open up the channels. And so that's a huge issue. And drugs. I don't know how bad drugs is. I heard Luton's a very bad place for this kind of thing. Oh, smoking weed, this and that, getting this. Parent will give you £20 and you go and roll this and do this and haram. He knows what I'm talking about. You know, this is, and Allahu Alam, if you have other drugs that you guys are interested or, sorry, not interested in, that you guys take or do or whatever, I don't know. But that's another issue. Or alcoholism, I don't know if there's an issue here. But for Muslims, from my experience in London, it's mostly weed. I want to smoke and this and that, and they're smoking, laughing. You've got to realize something. This is not going to get you anywhere. This is going to distract from your aims and objectives, and in fact, it's going to waste your time and your money. Yeah, you're always going to lose if you're a drug addict. You're always going to lose. So you have to cleanse your system from that drug. Remember, go back to the asl. You need to clean yourself up. You need to be purpose-driven, objective-driven, plan-driven. I don't know of any plan that smoking weed will be part of it, will be beneficial to it. Makes you dopey. Well, it makes you dopey. I have friends of mine, astaghfirullah, that smoke weed all the time. Yeah, it's not friends like, like that. But I go and do dawah to them, of course, yeah? And it's like, so brother, what's going on? Hey, this and that. Yeah. And wallahi, one time I got a friend of mine, long-time friend, yeah? He's this guy I'm talking about. We sat together one time, and we calculated how much he spent on weed. He's now about 40, yeah? He started smoking weed at the age of 15, and it was well over 150 grand. Which you can buy a mansion in Luton with. No, I don't think so, right? Well, it should be like that anyway. But you know what I mean? Like, you can probably get a flat with it or something, right? One bedroom. But what I'm saying is, subhanAllah, 150 grand, 150k, man. Spend it on what? And now where is it? It's in his system. His synapses are blunt. His synapses are blunted. Another thing is pornography. People are like, this is so easy for everybody. Everyone's smiling now. Now it's about me. No, but that's another thing, because it bluntens your dopamine receptors. It bluntens your dopamine receptors, yeah? And it ruins your experiences in that way. And in fact, these, you were talking about, the red pill movement. A lot of this now, this believing man have realized, we have to go no fat, no masturbation, no haram stuff like that. They keep away from pornography and all that kind of thing, because they realize it has a positive effect on their lives. Instead of because what it is you're eliminating, and this is not just for men, by the way. I know the girls listening. A lot of them are falling into the same thing. We think that it's a male-specific problem. It really isn't. Some females fall into this and they watch the stuff and it's haram, and they're addicted to it. Wallahi, and they treat themselves with it. Oh yeah, I'll go to the toilet, this and that. I'll put on you and this and that. And always watching. Allah's watching. Yeah, Allah's watching. Yeah. And we really have to, if you can control this aspect, because there are two urges that if somehow you can control a lot. The two urges are your sexual and aggressive urges. If you can control those urges, you can control a lot about yourself. So this is, in a sense, your jihad. It's your self-jihad. If you can do this, because willpower, having an iron will, being able to control yourself and your body and your emotions, that's one of the most powerful things you can get. That's strength. That's the real strength. So if you're able to win these fights, when you get aroused and this and that, you're thinking of doing that, and you beat that. Some of you don't even put up a fight. Some of you want to lose the fight. There's three categories of people. One category, they win every fight. Like Khabib Nurmagomedov, he wins every fight. Nurmagomedov, he wins, he's undefeated, undisputed. Yeah? Some people don't like that because they realize how to eliminate pornography from their life. What they do, they put themselves in areas where people are watching them. They leave the house when they think they're going to be alone. They have a set sleeping time, they know what, they cut it from the root. And other people, they win some and they lose some. But structure. So you win some, you lose some. Like Luton Town. Luton Town, the football team. You win, actually they lose more, right? Huh? That should be the last one, right? So these guys, Allah, don't despair from the mercy of God, because everyone loses fights, no problem. But you learn from it. You learn from it, okay, I've done this mistake now, I'm not going to put myself in this position again. And then that's how you develop strength, that's how you develop a strong will, that's how you develop, self-mastery, all that stuff. And the third category of people are people who genuinely don't care. They'll say, you know what, I'll just do, what are you saying? I'm just going to do my thing, this and that. And watching it and doing it's all haram. They don't care. They have no sense of purpose. And these guys are the most depressed, the least effective in everything. Even dunya stuff. You'll find that these people, because they have not, it's called delayed gratification. You delay your gratification. Because they have not achieved that, they don't know how to delay their gratification. You see them, they're getting the E's and the D's in school, or now like 4s and 5s or whatever. They're getting poor grades. They've got fat body. They've got this, they've got that. They're weak. They're very bad. They're very bad, all right. They're failures in this dunya. And that is something you want to avoid at all costs. You know? As I said, if you become addicted to this stuff, it will blunt your dopamine receptors. There's parts of the brain which will literally not feel pleasure anymore. Because what it is that you have parts of the brain which is called dopamine, serotonin, and these are called neurotransmitters, yeah? These neurotransmitters are feel-good hormones. They're hormones that secrete. Now, if you do things which are hard, like go to the gym, studies, reading, whatever, your body automatically releases these things to reward you for your hard work. That's how we are programmed. So if you do a hard job, like whether it's training or reading or something, your body releases dopamines, this and that. But when you're on your phone scrolling all day, and you're on Instagram, and bam, 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 and you're overstimulating yourself, you know what's happening? You're being rewarded for nothing. And that scrambles your brain. It gives you rewards for no good action. So it gives you no incentive to be successful. It bluntens your receptors, it makes you ineffectual, and it puts you out of a state of what you call homeostasis, a balanced state. So it ruins your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health. It takes you away from your plans and your objectives. You have to learn to have willpower and to harness your will. If you don't learn this at this young age, you will be failures. So these are the kind of things that young people need to hear.
Jazakallah khair, bro. Are you guys all okay?
That brother looks like Ali Dawa. He looks like a Pakistani Ali Dawa, doesn't he? I thought Ali Dawa came. I thought, when did he come?
Just coming, inshallah. We have a question, maybe a bit personal, but you can talk about maybe generally. How, as a public speaker, do you retain or others retain purity of intentions and avoid falling prey to the pride and riyah?
This is a very difficult one because, I was doing some research on it, on the hadith of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. That surely all actions are based on your intentions, and that all your intentions are based on your actions, or that you will get what you intended. فَمَنْ كَانَ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَكَانَ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَكَانَ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى امْرَأَةٍ دُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أو امرأة ينكحها فكان هجرته إلى ما أصاب إليه. That if your intention is to marry somebody or to get some dunya, I was looking at this hadith here. It's a very famous hadith, and I looked at Tabari, what he said about this hadith. Tabari said something interesting. He said the most important time to have a pure intention is in the beginning. Some scholars said that if you start off with a good intention and then all these things come in like riya and kibr and stuff, that you will not be punished for that. Interesting. They say it's where you start. Now some scholars disagree with that, but what the main thing is, if you start strong, you start because, and what should be the intention, you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, you want to submit your will to Allah, meaning you want the best outcome in terms of worship for the people, for yourself, for the community, when it comes to the worship of Allah. If you start off with that intention, then even if something like Hijab comes in and kibr comes in, obviously kibr is very dangerous because whoever has an atom's weight of kibr will not go into Jannah. So kibr is, the Prophet ﷺ is basically arrogance, but the Prophet ﷺ said, Batal al-haq wa ghamt al-nas. He described it as sidestepping the truth and oppressing the people. But it's also thinking that you're better than someone. So we have to keep reminding ourselves of our insignificance. And that's something that I try and do quite regularly, but I've stopped doing it now because my wife has taken over that role. That's the department of criticism and admonishment. Which is why I came here today.
Speak for you when she sees you.
Say again?
Speak for you when she sees it.
Well, let's be honest, I'm in control of everything, okay? I'm only kidding.
I just wanted to ask if you can give a few pointers on what it means to be a real man, because I think a lot of the reason why lots of youth go into red pill, all this stuff, because they try to provide a picture of what a man is, and we don't really have a good understanding of what a man is from the Quran and Sunnah. So if you could give a few Why do you have you really good?
You know, this whole thing about a real man, if you look at all the ayat in the Qur'an which talk about man, if you look at all, and I've done this myself, I've done it a few times because I'm really interested in it, you'll find that there are qualities which apply to men and women. فِيهِ رِجَالٌ يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا. You know? That, for example, talks about the masjid. Men that want to be purified. Purification. So purification is not necessarily conventionally linked to manhood. But in the Qur'an it is. The Qur'an, being pure, being a pure person spiritually and physically, yeah, is something which is linked to manhood. فِيهِ رِجَالٌ يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا. If you're dirty, if you don't know how to wash yourself, if you don't know how to clean yourself, you don't know how to, or if you're impure, we were talking about all these things that make you impure. That's against manhood from the Quranic perspective. Also, al-qawama, الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. You know that men are maintainers and protectors. And we talked about this. You have to want to maintain and caretake over your wife and your mother and the women folk in your family and protect them. And so generosity is connected to that. Because if you're a bakhil, if you're a stingy person, then how can you be a real man? You have to be generous. You don't feel like, I have to save this money. No, give it. Yeah, save, of course. وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ. As the Qur'an says, don't bring your hand so close to yourself like this, and don't overstretch it. Meaning, have a middle ground when it comes to spending, but don't be مَيُقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. That whoever safeguards themselves from stinginess, then he or they are the successful ones. So you'll find that the Qur'an talks about that, and it also talks about the fact that من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم ومنهم من ينتظر وما يبدلوه تبديلا. يعني in Surah Al-Ahzab, من المؤمنين رجال, from the belief, the true believers are men. And صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه, the ones that are basically true and sincere to what they have promised Allah. So these are all your answers. A mu'min, a pure person, a believer, a truthful person, a sincere person, a clean person, a person who is a maintainer, a protector. These are your answers. And there are things in the Sunnah as well. We look at the model of the Prophet. It's perfect. Ma'soom, perfect. It's the perfect model. You just look at his life. He was not shouting. This is my mistake I made when I first got married. I've been married now for 9 years, And this was a mistake, you get married, you want to assert your dominance as a young man. Where are you going today, huh? I thought I told you that when I want the tea, I have to be like this and that. I said Fajr and this, and you shout and this and that, you get angry, and you realize it's ineffectual. It's not about this. It's not about how much you raise your voice. It's about how good your argument is. Or in this case, sometimes silence is actually better than. My dad. He's 72 now. Yeah? He's been married 10 times. Yeah, well, And now I heard that he got married to a woman that's young. I heard. I don't know. I have to find out. But I heard he's got a new wife, and she's like very young, like 21 or something. He's 72. I was like, well, this guy, man, subhanAllah. What's going on in his red pill? I don't know what's going on. But he said something to me interesting. A lot of my public speaking stuff has come from my dad, even though I didn't really spend that much time with him. He said, and he always speaks with as if he's in a movie, yeah? He said, oh my son.
He speaks like you.
He speaks like, well, I speak like him, right? And sometimes he says something to me and I go find out it's like the lines of a movie. No, wallahi, uqsum billah, he said one time, he goes to me, my son, you've got to know when to hold them, you've got to know when to fold them, and you've got to know when to walk away. And I googled it and it was like Clint Eastwood or something. But he said to me something which is very, and he told me, look, he did give me advice on marrying many women and blah, blah, blah. He said, look, the grass, we always think, he said, the grass is always greener on the other side. He said, it's not like this. I've been with many women. He said, it's not like, it's overrated experience kind of thing, yeah? And it's headache. So I went against his advice. Anyway, he said something interesting. He said, my son, and this is exactly how it speaks. He goes, my son, it's not about what you say sometimes. Sometimes silence can be better than speech. And he was not really like a religious man growing up or whatever. So he said to me, when I used to do music, and that's another thing which is the problem of the youth, also the problem with my dad, but that's something else. He goes, when I used to do music, did you know, my son, that silence is a musical note? Oh, interesting. He said, therefore, when there's a problem between you and your wife, withdraw. He says, and funny enough, my mum had exactly the same advice. Well, she put it in a different language. And hopefully my wife is not watching this. She said, Ib'ad habba. This is what Egyptians say. This is Egyptian language, yeah? She said, Ib'ad habba, zid al-mahabba. So move it back, move away a little bit, and the love will grow. When I got married, it was like always in the face of the wife, and she's always in my face, and they're complaining and this and that, and we're just unloading on each other. Sometimes space is important. Let her miss you a little bit, you know. Let her like you, want to come to you a little bit. Some people go overboard with this thing, right? And they just leave. I think my dad went overboard with that, I have to say. I said, don't tell me this is the advice you do. This is why you left for 20 years. But but it's true. So I realize it's not about trying to assert your dominance through faux macho-ness. I'm the man, or this or that. You can't. What are you going to do? Like, let's be honest. Let's be real. You going to hear? That puts her in a position of power. Because now she said, oh, you hit me, yeah? So I've decided not to call the police. Her saying I've decided not to call the police is an exercise of power. I've decided I'm not going to tell my family, I'm not going to tell the police. That's actually, she's exercising her power there. So she's being merciful to you. So you can't hear her, because if you hear her, she's in control, and you've lost you couldn't even control yourself. How can you control her, right? So what are you really going to do? What you need to do is you need to calm down. You need to say, okay, this is what you're going to do, no problem. So sometimes I think myself, I've noted. And I think what I'm going to do this and that. I don't really have a plan, but let her think about it. And anxiety starts to accrue. And anxiety is the best accruement of anxiety with both parties. Is one of the most healthy sometimes ways of improving a relationship. Because you fear what you're going to lose. And so my advice therefore is, what's the question again? What's the question? How to be a man, okay. How not to be a man is to think that the answer to everything is using a sledgehammer to open a chestnut. If I have a chestnut here on this table, right? Say, let's open it up. We get one of the red pills. Say, open this up. He brings out a hammer, starts smashing it. It starts going everywhere. It's stupid. But then someone who's got more wisdom, he gets to know these things, and he puts soft pressure on it, and it slowly cracks. And it's perfect. When it opens perfectly, you can eat it straight away. Who's going to have the better? Whose method is more effective? Obviously the second person, right? Not the first person. So don't think that an exercise of power is to raise your voice, and to show your macho-ness, and to shout. This is a false way. Wallahi, it's actually weak. The best way is to, so I'm not saying you don't need to be assertive sometimes. Of course you do need to be assertive, 100%. What I'm saying is you have to be tactful with these things, because you only learn this the hard way. You only learn this the hard way. You learn it when you get into a relationship, and then the woman starts had enough. This guy's getting angry all the time. He can't even control himself. You know, and you're sitting there having a debate with her for 2-3 hours. It's like, what the hell, man? This is speaker's corner. This is speaker's corner. Forget that, man. I'd rather just leave the house and go to the gym or something like that, do something else. Let her simmer down, calm down, let her think about everything. Thinking about it is better than sometimes talking about it. So being a real man doesn't mean just being exercising authority and dominance. That's not what it's about. Sometimes you just have to. And one thing I would actually recommend, I did this recently. There's something called truity. Yeah, it's an enneagram test. Every one of us has a different type of disposition. We have strengths and we have weaknesses. Some of us are more introverted, some of us are more extroverted, and all of that comes with its strengths and its weaknesses. This thing online, I did like a personality test. I was so shocked because it gave me good advice. After that was long, I paid £13 for it. Yeah? It's called Truity, yeah? I did it. And it was telling me, listen, I didn't say listen, but I'm saying, this is how I understood it. It's like, you need to let other people talk. You need to have alone time. It was like a shift. Well, it was giving me great advice. Because everyone has a certain personality structure. Don't try and be something else. Don't try and change your demeanor. You are what you are, but you just have to tailor it a little bit. And so I would say that you should have self-awareness. You should know your strengths and you should know your weaknesses, and then you should try and work around that as much as possible. And you can use truity as well. It worked for me, maybe it'll work for you, see how it works. I'm not getting any commission for it. But it cost me 30 pounds. I was very good though. And my wife did it as well, and my other family members, and it all came quite accurate. So know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and try and build upon them. But don't feel like the best way to be a man is to smash a chestnut with a sledgehammer. That's never gonna. That's a pathetic approach, honestly. Yeah. And a lot of these guys, by the way, the red field guys. Yeah.
The famous saying says, whoever separates the scholars from the warriors will have his fighting done by food and thinking done by cowards. It's similar to what you said.
I like that, yeah.
With the chestnut, isn't it?
Yes.
The food is only basically using sledgehammer to open a chestnut.
Exactly, I like that, mashallah. You said that yourself?
We'll give you credit next time you need it.
So some credit for Luton.
Yeah.
How would you advise us young people to go about like giving advice to our friends and whatnot who are like sort of like pointing to the wrong path, but specifically like people who know right from wrong but find it hard to put it into practice?
Yeah, so I used to be one of those guys, not the know right from wrong bit, the ones who try to give advice. Yeah. And what it is that when I used to go to school, I used to go to a mixed school, like I had a very normal upbringing, yeah. And when I was in year 12 or 13, we started to make friendship groups. And what happened was, I was in a friendship group with like some Muslims, some non-Muslims, but majority non-practicing. Maybe one or two of them were practicing, yeah. But it was majority non-practicing. And it was there where I developed my skills, yeah, to be honest, to, I would say, not be affected. And try and be more, because the thing is, you can choose to be a shepherd or you can choose to be a sheep. This is a choice everyone of us has to make. You're either going to follow them, and I heard the sheikh was talking about, al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi, yeah, so the person is in the religion of their friends. So if you are in a group of people, and some of them are practicing and some of them are not practicing, either they're going to affect you or you're going to affect them. Sometimes it can be symbiotic and both ways, but other times it's not. It's going to be one of you is going to affect the other one. And usually the way it works is that the stronger personality wins. So the ones who are the most forceful and imposing person, the manipulative one, they win. And then you end up doing things you don't really ever want to do anyway, or you did it to please them or to fit in with them or whatever it is, or to be like them even. You want to be like them. What I say is that that's the trap. I'll tell you something that I used to do. I used to have a car at the age of 17, I used to drive. And they used to go to different places. I used to drive them, the brothers that were with me, my friend. And I said, look, you guys are not paying petrol, right? He said, yeah, I've never asked you for petrol, no problem. But what we're going to do is I used to have a seerah of the Prophet in the car, yeah? I said, we are going to go through this book. And they were like, no, what are you talking about, bro? They were like, no, I'm not going to do that. I was like, yes, we are. Because either that or it's public transportation. So anyway, I convinced them nicely, and we started doing it. So I stopped the car. My hard shoulder, sometimes we're driving somewhere, going to Luton, go to some other trash heaps. And then I don't know why I'm doing this to you guys today. But I would sit down and I would go through like 2-3 pages, nothing major. Like I literally timed 10 minutes. There was this event and this and that. Wallahi, one of them, I'm not going to mention it, but one of the brothers, he's a very close friend, even to this day, he converted, he became a Muslim. Wallahi. He was an English brother. He was a good friend, very good friend of mine. He became Muslim because of this. Yeah, and the other brothers became more practicing. So I continued being with these brothers because I felt I was affecting them more than they were affecting me. Had I ever thought that they were going to affect me more than I was going to affect them, I wouldn't be with them. If I'm going to be the effective one, then it's fine. But if I'm going to be the one led like sheep, then I'm not going to accept this. So you have to make a choice whether what you believe is more important than what these individuals want to do with their free time. If you have made the right choice and you trusted your own ability to convince, persuade, or otherwise influence, then by all means go and spread the lie, if you like. But if you can't, and you don't trust in your own ability, then you have to look at the stories of the Ashab al-Kahf, the people who left the city and they went to the cave to preserve their own religion. And you have to be honest with yourself. If you're someone who will be affected, and there are places I know, if I go, I'm not saying, oh, I can affect everyone. I know. There are places I know that if I go to, I'll be more affected than I'll have effect. And I don't go to those places. But maybe in other places, like there's brothers I was telling you about, like, the smoking weed and stuff like that. I used to do the tafsir session with them. They used to smoke weed. So I said, look, at first I tried to go the sledgehammer approach. I went into the house, and they had this called grinder. You know, they grind the weed. You know what I'm talking about. So they grind it and they put it in the thing. So I went in, like a macho man. They've known me for years. I said, I've had enough. I'm Muslim, you're Muslim. I got the grinder, I started smashing it on the wall. I smashed the grinder, you know what I'm talking about. And they were mad. He said, what are you doing, bro? I said, don't come to my house, don't smash my grinder. I thought if they couldn't, and they grinded it some other way anyway. They grinded it some other way. But I went through Juz Amma with them, tafsir. I said, if you want to smoke weed, at least pray Aisha then. You know, I'm not giving fatwa, but I was just saying that when I was younger. I said, give me 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then, well, I went through Surah Nazi'at, and they loved it. I was like, yeah, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then they would start smoking weed. And I think because there was so much weed, and I think I was getting high as well. And so I had to weigh it up. And I thought, at the end of that, I thought, actually, it might not be a good idea to stay, with these brothers. But now I still see them, but in context where I know that I'm not going to be affected like that. You know what I'm trying to say? I see them from time to time and give da'wah to them. So no one is immune from being affected, but you need to choose the time, the place, and the people where you can be more effective than have effect be done on you, and you need to go through the go-round, whatever it is you know. But if you feel like you fear, then do what the Ashab al-Kahf did. In Surah al-Kahf, they went to the cave because they feared that these guys are going to change us back into whatever religion it was that they believed in. So you have to weigh up and you have to make your own decisions.
Guys from Luton, we know he's been saying a lot of amazing things about Luton. Yeah? Yeah? I'm sure you guys are really happy. Bro, his side, you know what? Half of the masjid jumping and it's not going to have an impact.
No, I don't give them that challenge, bro. That's happened to me before with the EDL, actually. And I have to say it was successful. Size didn't matter.
What's the biggest problem in Luton? Amongst young people? No, seriously, what has been happening recently? Knife crime. One of our respected sisters from upstairs, she's a mother of 3 children. SubhanAllah, and there are many mothers out there, their sons are no more with them. SubhanAllah. And there's many incidents in the last year plus that have happened in Luton. And it's something really, really bad. Really bad in the sense that not only it's bringing down the Muslim Izzah of Luton down, honestly, because there's a lot of good work happening throughout Luton. Every masjid is doing, mashallah, good work.
Do we know why they get stabbed? Do you have any idea why?
Very small things. Yeah, it's something that they've had a little argument over, something over mobile phone, the messages that they didn't like the way you texting, whatever, yeah, that leads to things, and then they're going and chasing, and intentionally they want to stab them, and so on and so forth. And the worst thing is, there's others who's standing and recording this happening. Allah. Could you maybe share some light on that?
You know, all of us have I know this sounds crazy here, but I think every single one of this person in this room has the ability to kill someone. Police, we got him. I'm joking. But yeah, no, they have it, because put in the right scenario or the wrong scenario, we can say anyone can do anything. You learn that with the story of Joseph. Hammat bihi wa hamma biha. She was attracted to him, he was attracted to her. You know, obviously, if it wasn't for the fear of Allah. But anyone can do anything, and we all have that potential. And you know, subhanAllah, the Qur'an has many ayat on this. And One of them is the first crime actually committed in humanity, where Adam, he has obviously 2 sons, and he said, one of the sons said to the other one, لَإِن بَسَطْتَ إِلَيَّ يَدِكَ لِتَقْتُلَنِي مَا أَنَا بِبَاسِطٍ يَدِي إِلَيَّ لِأَقْتُلَكَ. If you try and kill me, I'm not going to kill you. But the other one killed him anyway. And he said, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ غُرَابًا يَبْحَثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُرِيَهُ كَيْفَ يُوَارِي سَوْءَةَ أَخِيهِ فَأَصْبَحَ مِنَ النَّادِمِينَ. So Allah sent a crow, and the crow has symbolism as well. If you think of what a crow is, dark bird, you know, which the death symbolism there, because it's vulture kind of thing, to show him how to bury his brother. He didn't even know, because the idea of burial wasn't there in humanity. So Allah, he sent a bird, and then he saw, oh, the bird is doing this. This is how to bury someone. ومن أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل. From this, we have made a thing on Bani Israel. We have put on Bani Israel. إنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. Whoever kills one person, lest it be for murder, corruption, the land is like killing all of humanity. ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. So these are ayat, and then you have in the Qur'an as well. ومن قتل مؤمنا متعمدا فجزاؤه جهنم خالدا فيها وغضب الله عليه ولعنه. This is a very, very, very deep thing. Whoever kills a mu'min intentionally, a believer intentionally, then he will go to hell. He will go to hell. خالدا فيه is the only ayah in the Qur'an which talks about khulud fi nar, even though Ahl Sunnah say that the Muslims will eventually come out, but it's the only ayah in the Quran which talks about khulud fi nar for a Muslim when it comes to killing, which means eternality in the hellfire. Wallahi, this just imprint this ayah in your. I want the youth to know this ayah, memorize the ayah, know where the ayah is. Surah Nisa, they need to know these. If you're a mu'min and you truly believe in Allah, these ayat should put fear in your heart. Your ego, because it really is a matter of this. What's stronger, your ego or your iman? Like if someone's saying, or whatever, you this and that, you want to prove that you're a man. So you're going to prove that you're a man by stabbing somebody. That's not actually even a fair fight, to be honest with you. We need to normalize the fact that someone who stabs someone is a coward, actually. Because if you stab me, this small man here, how old are you? Huh? Okay, maybe not you. How old are you? How old are you? 50. He could kill me. Obviously not in any other circumstance. But if he had a knife in his pocket, he could not. A 15-year-old can kill Francis Ngannou. You know this big, Mike Tyson or someone. He can kill him. Now, does that mean that he's stronger than Mike Tyson? No, it doesn't. It means that you can only do it when there's a huge disadvantage. They call weapons a great equalizer. So we need to put in a culture, because if they're doing it for manhood, we need to show them that it's actually against manhood to stab someone who's unarmed. Back in the days, they used to do mubaraza. Mubaraza or mushatara. They used to call it mushatara, and they used to call it mubaraza. SubhanAllah, look at this, yeah? When they used to have wars, they used to bring out somebody to do one-on-one with the sword. And guess who used to come out all the time for the Muslim side? Ali ibn Abi Talib. Obviously as well, but Ali ibn Abi Talib was known for this, yeah? And even with big enemies and big strong guys, he always used to say, I want to do this. So in war, the guy has a sword, I have a sword, let's fight to the death. Bro, this is not UFC, sorry to say, where there's going to be arrest every 5 minutes. And a controlled condition, if you get cut, then you stop the fight. This is actually quite, if you think about it, it's low-level risk. Wallahi is actually a low. We're talking about 2 people, and the winner is the one who's still alive. A fight to the death with swords. But what would it look like? Do you know what would be seen as the worst humiliation? Like it would be seen as lack of manhood for someone to not have a thing or be running away and you stab them like that. Because you're killing someone who's not armed, who doesn't have an equal chance to kill you. That would be seen as cowardice. It's always been, actually, in all of humankind, it's been seen as cowardice. It's been seen as cowardice in all of human history. Only nowadays, because these guys think, oh, I killed him. And you think I've got a body. They call it, I've got bodies. They use the same terminology for sexual stuff as well. They say, oh, I've had this many bodies in my record. And some say body count, meaning how many people I've killed. But what were these people? Was it 101 or was it fair? Was there a need for it? What did they do to you? Did they try and kill you? No, none of that. He just got rude to me, innit? What did he say? Oh, he said, you know what I'm saying? He said Luton was a trash heap. Bruv, he was right. But what? Oh, yeah, he came from West. Do you guys have postcodes? Do you even have the LU, what was it? Oh, he's LU4, I'm LU8. No, you're LOSER. Honestly, like, so they think we need to bring, because if it's ego, we need to challenge their ego. Think about it, right? If they're saying, okay, they believe that this makes them a man, because that's what goes back to your question. This is really what they're doing. They think it's ego, yeah? And it's mostly men that commit these crimes, 99%. So if they think that this makes them a man, we need to educate them and make part of the culture. This makes you a coward. Because it's not even. The person's unarmed. There's no reason for it. And obviously, it's a major sin. But the major sin thing won't work with these guys because they've already put in their head that they're going to kill someone. So use all the other dunya stuff. This makes you a coward, bro. Sorry to say. Well, you stab someone who is what? What did he have on him? Nah, he didn't have anything. So you stab someone who had nothing on him. Yeah. Okay, you're a big man, yeah. I'm scared of you. It's nothing. Wallahi, this is a coward. And they need to be branded. These guys that do this stuff need to be branded as cowards. But the first thing here is change the culture of how you perceive stabbings. And like everything else, you need to change the culture. If they're using strong and hard language and manly language or whatever, you use exactly the opposite. Oh, this is that coward that stabbed this and that, this guy here. The second thing I would say is obviously prevention is better than cure. Yeah? Prevention is better than cure. Meaning, if you know that these areas, these estates, these people go in here, and adults need to take responsibility for this as well. Why are you putting your 13-year-old son in that area? Like without protection, without supervision, you need to look at that as well. Number three is we need to look at the main reasons why these guys are doing this. And a lot of them are doing it because they're failures everywhere else. They can't be successful in the educational aspect. They're not sportsmen, because a successful person has a lot to lose. But a failure has nothing to lose. And a person who doesn't care to go to jail is a person who's a very dangerous person in society. So if we, and once again this goes to education, if we raise the levels of everyone in society that they feel like they can be successful in other spheres, they won't feel like the only way I can be successful is by having 2 or 3 bodies in my record. And I don't mind if I go to prison, because they go and research and they see actually prison's not that bad. That's what they're going to see. So okay, I'm willing to take 8 years for this. I'm willing to do that. So if we give people a lot to lose, then I feel like we've got something that we can do. But if there's a culture of, yeah, this is what makes a man and this and that, then to be honest with you, we've got an uphill struggle. And one last thing I would say, is actually be prepared for this kind of thing. And I want to be honest, martial arts gives you 0 protection against a knife. I don't care what anyone tells you. Oh, if I go in Muay Thai for 20 years, you can be the best Muay Thai. You can be Badr Hari, yeah, you can be the top guy. But when it comes to a knife, you will not be able to fight a knife with your fists. It's not possible. You will lose 99% of the time, which means you need to have some level of, okay, if someone brings out a knife, what am I going to do? You want to rob me? You want to do this? Your best options are to run most of the time. That's actually your best option. You need to know, oh, I'm going to fight him, but you're going to fight him with a knife. It's not, why are you going to fight someone with a knife because he wants to take your phone? Give him your phone. It's not cowardice. Give him your phone. If you're a 13-year-old, you've got a lot to lose. I'm sure, I don't even need to tell you, you're going to do this anyway. Yeah, and so don't put yourself in a disadvantage trying to fight someone with a knife or something like that. Don't be ridiculous. Yeah.
You obviously come across as a learned person. You say we have such great institutions here in the UK, we obviously do. But however, some places we learn at such institutions, when most of our institutions aim is to only get us to get a degree at the end of it, instead of actually learning through our topic or we're actually learning. what guidance do you give us to people who are trying to actually get beneficial knowledge and like trying to learn through these institutions, trying to get something out of it?
You've got to choose what you want to learn and why you want to learn it. This is the first question you have to have good answers to. Yeah? And once you've understood that, then you can work backwards from that. And as I said, you weren't here when we said this, but we said the first thing that the Prophet told us is the Qur'an. خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you are those who learn the Qur'an and teach it. And also in the Qur'an it says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We have made the Qur'an easy for remembrance and understanding, so who's going to come and understand? It's a question. Who wants to remember it? Who wants to understand? So, the first thing is the Qur'an, you need to prioritize that. Any Muslim who inspires the Qur'an, it is the communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After that now, you can choose what you're interested in. Everyone's interested in different things. You have historians, you have political scientists, you have humanities, you have scientists, you have whatever you like, and then see how that thing is going to help Islam. And you will find an answer to that question. But whatever you're good at, you know, when I was, I'll tell you, I have, mashallah, 2 nieces, and they have children now actually as well. They got married young. I got them myself married, they were 18 when they got married. And, I take my own advice as well. But both of them, I sat with them, and we done plans with them. And when they were in year 12, I gave them very solid advice. I believe, obviously it's me giving it, so it will be. But we looked at all their grades. This is how we determined it together. We looked at their grades, what they were good at and what they were not. They were good at everything actually. Both of them were getting A stars everywhere, yeah? At that time we had A stars, but not numbers. And the things that they were, so we have to look at what they were stronger at. If you're not strong at something, it's better to build upon what you're strong at than try and fill up what you're weak at. So we looked at, they were social scientist people, their family, or not their family, their father, wanted them to be in medicine. But you need to be really good at physics and chemistry and whatever, and they were better at history and other things. So my recommendation was to pursue that which not only that which you are interested in, but that which you are good at. Because you have more chance of success. And that was my honest advice. Alhamdulillah, they both made it to top universities, Cambridge, this and that, whatever. Goldsmiths and top universities, and both became mothers, and one of them at least did, and done good work. But had it not been that, sometimes we need guidance, someone to come and say, look, this is what you need to do. You're good at this, you're not good at this. Oh, you're good at mathematics. Oh, okay. If someone's so good at mathematics, it doesn't make sense to bring them into like the social scientist expert or something. If someone's so talented, you got to tap your talent, know what you're really good at, and build upon it. But you need to have a baseline everywhere. But what you're really good at, that's what you take and you move forward with. That's the advice I would give everyone else. So choose. You got to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Choose that which you're interested in and you're good at, and then direct that to the propelling of Islam. That's what I would say.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Hijab. We are coming to Adhan in the next 3 minutes, inshallah.
Yeah.
Just before we finish, it's a big Jazakallah Khairan. Allah reward you, protect you, preserve you, inshallah. May Allah give our ummah many more of you, inshallah. Allahumma ameen.
That'll be horrible.
I want most of them can be my size this time, inshallah. And plus, they're going to be from Luton, so it's
I had the same experience when I was in year 5. I was young.
Allahu Akbar. I know how you feel now. Al-Muflihun UK is the organization, obviously, the youth organization who has organized this. I'd like to request you guys to follow that, inshallah, on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram as well, inshallah ta'ala. And you'll know about further activities that we'll organize inshallah in the near future. I'd like to request you, whenever you hear of any events or talks, please look out for all the people that you interact with in the social media, friends, people you spend and walk with, people you go to college with or whatever not, yeah? Bring them along, slowly. Don't push them, but advise them, guide them, direct them. Because if you don't, and a day may come, on the day of judgment, they'll stand against you, yeah? So, because you ate with them, you befriended them, but when it came to Islam, you didn't tell them you were selfish. You wanted to learn and be a better Muslim, but you couldn't tell them. So think of it this way, inshallah ta'ala. Also guys, many of you have brought your trainers and shoes and sandals and whatever. Please take your own ones, yeah? check them if they're your size, yeah? Because many people will be walking home by them, bare feet otherwise, yeah? Also, on those Instagram and other pages, you'll find out we have also Al-Muflihat Sisters circles as well, many circles throughout the week. So many of your sisters, cousins, they can also benefit from. So there's a lot of stuff happening in Hokuri Masjid. We'd like you to get involved with us, inshallah ta'ala, and be part of the youth, where we can help others to come to the din, inshallah ta'ala. Again, lastly, just before the Adhan goes, I want to thank all of you from the bottom of our heart on behalf of all the masjid trustees, all the organizers of this event, especially to our brother and every one of you. Jazakumullah Khairan wa ahsanul jaza. We'll read with Surah Al-Asr before we finish, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.